So tonight we have this 2009 Pontiac G5. It's here for a couple of reasons. Customer's trying to add another key fob. The car was bought used, it didn't come with one, so he's got a used one, and only one. And he's also installed the steering wheel with the controls for the cruise control. And we're going to see if we can get the cruise control to function through service programming. But first and foremost, we should be able to program a remote to this thing. Let's have a look at that procedure. So I have a battery charger on the vehicle so the battery won't go flat. I've got the key on the run position, and we're looking at the snap-on scanner here and program key fob number 1. This is in the keyless entry system. It says the procedure will replace the previously programmed key fob with the key fob requiring programming. Place the module in the program mode by selecting program on the scanner and simultaneously press and hold the lock and unlock buttons on the key fob to be programmed. When programming is successful, the parameter for that fob will display yes. Select done or exit the test when complete. So I'm going to go to this, and I've got the key fob in my hand here, and I'm going to select program and press these two buttons simultaneously. And it should have worked by now. So there's a possibility that this key fob doesn't transmit. Let's see if we can test this key fob. So I'm going to use this Maxi TPMS tool, this TS408, and I've got it in the mode here, and I've got the key fob, and it says press a button on the key fob, and it doesn't work. Now I would imagine the customer tried changing the battery, but we're going to try that first of all. I thought this was a 3-volt battery, this battery. Well, let's see. Now I'm getting 3 volts out of it, but at first I was only getting 1.5 volts out of it. So here's the fob, and I noticed if I pressed this button I'd get a signal, but not these two. So I'm going to clean these contact pads. They're working now if I put a metal device across them. You can hear the transmitter. So I'm going to try and clean those up with some emery cloth. So I cleaned these contacts with some fine emery cloth and wiped them off with brake cleans and cleaned the contacts in the pad here in the back, but it still does, these two still don't work. So then I tried just with my fingers. If I wet my finger and touch this, I did manage to get it to program by wetting my fingers and touching both of them. So something wrong with this pad inside here. There's got to be some kind of conductive material in that button. So these little pads are electrically conductive. I managed to get this thing to program by wetting both my fingers and touching both terminals, and it programmed. But if I put this button on here, it locks the doors or unlocks the doors, but this button doesn't work. So it's this bladder that's defective, this piece here. There's got to be some kind of a conductor impregnated into that, and then it's wore off. Because if I use this button down here, this one for the, what one is that one? Where's the stupid cover? Oh, for the trunk. Let's try releasing the trunk. Trunk released. And if I do this, I gotta get the right spot. Can lock and unlock, but these two don't work. weird. Well, we know it's not the vehicle, it's the transmitter. So it does show programmed 1, or fob 1 programmed. It does work for the trunk, but it doesn't work for the door lock and unlock. So I tried cleaning the button several times and it doesn't work. So it needs a new key fob. So looking at keyless entry remote start data in the BCM, and it says remote start status here is enabled. So this vehicle likely has remote start feature already. We just need the key fob to make it work. And the hood has to be closed, obviously. Hood, driver's door ajar, hood ajar switch 1 voltage, hood ajar switch closed. I got the hood open because I got a battery charger on it. But the cruise control data, let's see if it's enabled. Shouldn't be. Cruise control switch voltage. In the ECM, the cruise control data doesn't change when you operate the switches in the steering column. Now, my customer changed the steering wheel. Now, I don't know if he put the entire steering column. I am assuming he did, with the clock spring and everything in it, but I'm not 100% certain on that. I'm going to watch this cruise control because it's stepped resistances. Here's the electrical circuit for the cruise control here. There's stepped resistances and it's an input to the body control module. So from the EPS steering wheel control, I wonder if it's even got that fuse in there. That's a fuse. Fuse 19, 2 amp. Well, let's go back to the diagnostic suite here and have a look at this switch status while I operate the buttons. So I'm pressing the various buttons on the steering wheel now. Let's turn it on first. There's 1 button, 2nd button, 3rd button, 4th button. That one doesn't seem to work. Oh, there's only 2 buttons. The other 2 buttons are for this driver information center. So the buttons work. So obviously that fuse is in place, otherwise they wouldn't work. But yet when I look in the engine data, it doesn't show it. In engine data, I was looking in engine data, accessory data, and none of the data parameters related to the cruise control would show that they were changing state. So the BCM communicates across the network. So let's build a custom data list here. Deselect everything, just select the cruise control. Cruise on off, cruise active, cruise set, cruise coast, cruise cancel. Graph. So I'm going to go operate the on-off switch, which is this one here. Off, on, off, on. Resume and set. Neither of those show up in the ECM, yet the BCM is seeing them, so it's got to be programming that's missing. I'm going to look around. So back in the BCM data list, the cruise switch, if I turn it on and off, this voltage changes, but the status of this does never change. So it's probably in the BCM programming that requires a different setting to enable the cruise control, and that's not something we can typically do with a scan tool, not at least not with a snap-on scan tool. I don't think we can do it with any scan tool. It has to be done with service programming. But the interesting thing is it does show that it has remote start. Configuration is options, but none of them mention anything to do with the cruise control. Auto door locks, display units, interior dimming, language, passive arming, remote start enabled. I thought I saw that. Remote start enabled says disabled. I thought that was enabled earlier. Boy, I'm losing my mind. I'm sure that I saw that as being enabled. Where was I looking at that? Remote start data. Remote start status says enabled in this data list, yet in the configuration it says disabled. Isn't that weird? Remote start enabled, disabled. All right. Plot thickens. So I was reading some threads on the internet about guys wanting to enable factory cruise, which is these buttons here. This customer has installed this steering wheel and steering column, and the buttons work as an input to the BCM. And everybody said, or a couple of threads that I read said, do you need the Tech2? Well, guess what? I have a Tech2. And there is an option. It looks like an option to configure cruise control. Enter. Save option. I never knew you could do this on these vehicles. Normally you'd have to go through GM service programming. New module setup. Continue. There was other features too. Yeah, there was other features like what country it came from. So enable daytime running lights by saying it was in Canada as opposed to the US or Mexico. Well, let's go back and have a look at the data in the ECM now. Well, I'm right here right now, so I exit out. Body control module, data display. Let's see if the configuration now says enabled. Remote start enabled, this says disabled. Anti-lock brakes. I don't see cruise control, I must have missed it. Cruise control data. Battery voltage. Let's see if the switch shows on and off now. It does. Well, we're going to go for a road test and see if this cruise control works. Let's go back into the ECM and see if the data shows in the ECM now. Powertrain, 2.2, automatic, engine control module, data, and cruise control PTO traction data. Cruise control switch active, no. Now the switch shows on, off. Look at that. Set, active, coast, active. So it appears on this vintage you could just enable it with a Tech2 scan tool. Well, we're going to take it for a road test. Well, I'm done driving with my foot off the gas pedal, and we're coming up a hill. And the cruise control works all by itself. Oh, it cut out. That's weird. Oh yeah, this is cruise engaged. Even that. Why did it cut out going up that hill? That time it didn't. Well, it could have been just below the minimum speed that it was necessary to be working. So the cruise control works. Yay!